I've been wanting to do an unscripted podcast episode, and today is the day. I'm going to call this topic loosely How I Keep Going. And it's not just for the podcast, but how in general I keep going. So the first thing that I do to keep going is just, do you aspire to an uncomplicated and fulfilling way of life? I'm Dianne Squires, aka Dianne. That's what all my friends call me. I'm an island woman living on the island of Barbados and walking my path to a big and simple life. Walk with me and learn with me. Welcome to the Island Woman podcast. I've been wanting to do an unscripted podcast episode, and today is the day. But guess what? It hasn't happened because this was the planned unscripted episode. It's happened because of some technical difficulties that I'm really trying to get over with my virtual interviews with guests. So you know that I've been interviewing women founders, leaders, and experts from the Caribbean for season 3 of the podcast. But lately, and I mean like for 3 guests consecutively, I have had technical issues. So today's episode is not just unscripted, but unscheduled for this time because I did plan to do an unscripted episode, but it just so happens it's today. So here we go. All right. So I do have a list of topics that I want to tackle over the course of any period for the Island Woman podcast. And this one has come up because one of the things that people have said to me, these are people who know me, who've been following the podcast. It either comes as a question or a comment. So the comment is usually, I'm so impressed that you've kept going. Or how do you keep it going? I had a podcast and I only got to list whatever number of episodes that person got to, right? So today I'm going to call this topic loosely How I Keep Going. And it's not just for the podcast, but how in general I keep going as an independent consultant, as an entrepreneur who surely has seen a lot of ups and downs. And just, as a person in life, what's my mechanism to keep going? How am I doing that now? And how am I improving or continuing to build my muscle to keep going? So I don't have a script, but I do have my points listed on my notepad here. So the first one is that I make a decision. I decide. If you have a goal, and this is for me, I'm going to make this very personal to me, but if you can learn something from it, I really do hope that you can. The first thing is that I've made a decision with this podcast and with other things in my life because I have an overarching goal. And the goal for this podcast has been to do that, to just keep going. I made that decision because I was one of those people who started another podcast many years ago. I think it's about 7 years, 2019, 7 years ago now. And I did 14 episodes of that podcast and I loved it. And I think I addressed this sometime before on this podcast. It was called Backstage with Bajan Brands, and in it, I talked to a lot of the marketers who I admired, looking at the brands that they were building or stewarding. And I did 14 episodes of that podcast. And then it came to an end. And I always regretted that it came to an end. But I mean, circumstances, like I got busy with client work and I had not properly planned for if that had happened, what would I do? So anyway, with this podcast, I made the decision that one of my major goals was to keep going. I looked at a lot of the podcasters that I admire and who I still follow today, and I listen to their podcasts when I'm out taking my walk or when I just need to decompress. And the one thing that they have done is they've kept going. And clearly they've kept my interest over many years. So that was one goal that I had when I started the Island Woman podcast, was to keep going. So I made that decision. And so that decision has meant that when things that are happening, like what's happening now, I had the plan. I'm going to interview these fantastic, incredible women, and that's going to be my entire season 3. And then there's a spoke in the wheel, and we have technical difficulties. Keep going. So the first thing that I do to keep going is just to decide. All right. So the second thing that keeps me going, or is the reason or how I keep going, is my late dad used to say to me, don't doubt yourself. And I will give you context for how he or when he would say this to me. My dad was a teacher, and he started his teaching career from very young. It was right out of secondary school. I think he always wanted to be an accountant. He always loved math, always loved numbers. And though he never became an accountant, he was an incredible teacher. And so my sisters and I, we all had to go through this, I think. My dad used to give extra lessons, and that would usually happen on Saturdays. And so we would be at home, and when we got to a certain age, for me, it was when I had to do what we call here in Barbados the common entrance exam, which is an exam that you take to move on to secondary school, or what other people might call high school. So you take this exam and you choose which schools you would like to go to, and the marks that you get, how you score on the exam, tells you whether you get your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, whatever, right? So I used to attend lessons with my dad, and this used to happen all the time, especially with mathematics. I would complete a problem, and somehow, I don't know, out of the blue, I would think, shoot, I don't know if I really did this right, or I don't know if I worked this out the right way. And I would have all the erasing marks. I would start to erase and try to do it over. And then I would come up with maybe something slightly different. And when my dad reviewed the work, usually it was that I was right the first time. He could see all the erasures that I did. And he would say, don't doubt yourself. It would usually be that I would have been right the first time. So with this podcast and with a lot of other things in my life, especially as I grow older, I've come to the recognition that you can be right the first time, and you just need to pursue that thing that you set out for yourself, even when it comes to that point when you start to doubt yourself. And usually you start to doubt yourself when things get hard, when it gets rough, and when it can start to seem like maybe this really isn't the thing for me. But the truth is, that's just life happening. That's just, a little pothole in the road, a rough moment that you need to circumvent, get around, get through, get over. And so you have to see that self-doubt for what it is. It really is just the self-doubt, and it's not that the thing is no longer relevant. Sometimes it really is your first instinct. A lot of the time is just very right, and you should not doubt yourself. So that's the second thing that keeps me going, is to say, do not doubt yourself. So if it is this topic that you want to talk about, if it's this person that you want to interview, if it is this thing that we need to do when we have a challenge, don't doubt yourself. Just go forward and do it. All right. I'm on to the third one now. And this one is very closely related to that don't doubt yourself. It is reduce self-judgment. Trust me when I tell you that right now, I would love for my hair to look better. I would love maybe for my outfit to be better. I would love to be maybe a lot more articulate, maybe as I do this unscripted video. I would love for the lighting to be better. I would love to have a better background. There's so much that I would probably want to change, but I'm just going to put that self judgment aside and I'm going to continue because no matter how my voice sounds or no matter how articulate I am, I have a point to make. I have a voice I believe that needs to be heard out there in the world. I'm a Caribbean woman, and I do believe that part of my voice being heard is not just my voice being heard, but that Caribbean voices have to be heard out there on the international stage, and we need to use the platforms that can help us do that. So I'm going to reduce the self judgment, how my hair looks today, how my lighting is today, how I feel today, all of that. I'm going to take that away and just keep going. Right? All right. Number 4 is, and these points just keep building on each other. So it is to give yourself permission to change, to improve, to iterate as you go on. Give yourself permission to evolve. Using this podcast as I'm looking down at the microphone because one of the things is technical issues. So just making sure that the microphone is still on. One of the things with this podcast, if I use this as an example, is that, when I started out, obviously I wanted a certain kind of production quality. I wanted to know exactly what I was going to talk about. I had, the list of topics and I was well prepared, everything in advance, 6 episodes done before the time and all of that. Brilliant. But having done the Backstage with Bajan Brands podcast and knowing that one of the things, it wasn't just time and not having the time to do it. It was being okay with just improving along the way. There's so much, especially with a video podcast, that you start to think about. And I mentioned some of them before, how you look, what your lighting is, whether the lighting and the audio and everything is, crystal clear and all of that, and how people are perceiving you, because it is your image that you're using when you are doing a video podcast. So there is a lot. But I had to give myself permission to go, this will evolve, this will change. Where you started is not where you're going to be next week or next month or next year. And the point is that ultimately you've made the decision to keep going. So just like life changes, you go from being, the infant who needs a lot of care to the toddler who can do a little bit more for themselves to the preteen, to the teen, to the adult, and you keep learning and changing, evolving. Just give yourself permission to improve along the way. So it's not going to be perfect. And you have to know that, and you have to let yourself get little things better and better as you go along. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm glad that I've been forced into this unscripted episode before I wanted to get here. Because one of the things that I would really love to improve is just being aware enough and being articulate enough to just go for it and take less time recording episodes. Scripting episodes takes time. Whether I have a guest or whether I am doing a scripted episode for myself, that means that I am preparing a script, which takes time. And I've been doing that because, I don't want to waffle. So I don't want to bore people by going off on a tangent or whatever. But it feels a lot more natural when you are not scripted. And though I'm writing a script and trying to be as conversational or writing it in the way that I would say it, it's still not the same. You, after all, are for the most part reading from a script. So I'm glad that I've given myself the opportunity to improve and to change along the way, because that means that now being forced to do the unscripted episode when I did not plan it pushes me to improve in an area a little bit more quickly than maybe I had planned, and that is fine. So the way I'm keeping going right now is to just give myself permission to let the thing evolve and change. All right. So the final point here that I want to make on this kind of a loose topic on how I keep going is ask for help. This is hard for many of us. I know that it is hard for me because a lot of the time when I don't ask for help is because I feel like, but by now I should be good at this. I should be able to do this myself. By now I should be good enough that I can manage this on my own. But here's the thing now, especially with where I am in my life. After 50 and after a certain stage, when you have been over so many years trying to manage so many things on your own, and this is true for parents and anybody who's juggling a lot. You are the employee or the employer, you are the parent, you are the the caregiver, otherwise you are the friend, you are the companion or the husband or the wife, and you have a lot of things going on for each of those roles. And so you are managing a lot. It comes to a point, let me tell you, for those people who are younger than me and listening to this, as a woman, when you are changing in life, what the old people, as I know it, used to call change of life, and what we now know as that stage called perimenopause, when you're moving from, your reproductive years to your non-reproductive years, when your body, your mind, your hormones, whatever, you are just not about handling it all. Number one, even if you wanted to, it becomes harder because physically and emotionally and chemically in your body, it just ain't working like that anymore. It's just not. And so a lot of things that I was undertaking all on my own. So I am, working with clients or trying to get clients, keeping the books up to date, exercising, keeping that going, cooking and cleaning, and all the things that happen in day to day life. And there just comes a point when you need help. And so with this podcast, so when I started out, I did for me, what was a big setup. So I would have one phone that was recording video, another phone that was my teleprompter because I was working from a script. I had the microphone, so I was charging up and I was doing all the technical stuff and I was doing all the recordings and I was writing the script and I was doing the talking, and then I was, working with an editor, which was brilliant, by the way, because then I wasn't editing. But then I had to change that. So then I was the editor myself. And so I switched to this platform, Riverside.fm, which I use to record and edit a little bit more easily. And I forget about the background. So I just use one of the virtual backgrounds that they have just to make things easier. So using the platform became helpful. It just made things easier. Another way in my life overall that I've realized this is over the years, as you know, many of you who have been following the podcast or know me personally know that when I started out, it wasn't in marketing and communications like I am now. It wasn't as an independent consultant or a marketing manager or a brand communication manager like I later became, or an agency executive or any of that. It was not in the corporate world. I spent 7 months in the corporate world, left that quickly, and went to pursue a fellowship in dance. And I spent 10 years with dance as a career, a dancer, a choreographer. And so I have been myself kind of taking care of my exercise routines. At first, it was you had to go, you had to be in rehearsal, you had to be at dance class, you had to maintain your body and your physique, all of that. So I have been doing all of that for, I mean, the better part of 30 years because yeah, for 30 years or more. And for the most part, not really going to a gym or having a personal trainer or any of that for a lot of different reasons. But last year, as I was, I'm doing the walking and I'm doing the weight training at home after I finish a day of work, it just got to a point where I just knew if I don't get help with this, I'm going to fall off the wagon and I'm not going to like it. It was a lot to do along with all the other things that I did. And so one day, Brian, my partner, he has been going to the gym. And one day I was just like, can you please tell your trainer that I'm coming with you today? It was very short notice, but bottom line is I went, and originally I went to get a consultation. How can I make my home workouts better? This is what I've been doing at home. How can I improve it? Let me tell you, on the first exercise that I showed this trainer, he gave me one pointer. And the execution of that exercise was so much better. I could feel it from the first rep, the very first repetition. And I was like, this is why you needed to come. And so I continued. I got the advice, and I was like, this is so good. This is what you needed to do. And then I went once again, and then I went another time, and now I'm at 2 times per week at the gym. And it has made such an incredible difference in how I feel, how I execute, and the results that I'm seeing because I just needed to ask for the help. I know I spent a lot of time on this one, but it really has been one of those things that I know is going to keep me going. And so just from that lesson, and that was maybe around November of 2025. So now it's been about 2.5, 3 months. And I'm so glad that I asked for the help. And I will be asking for help in other areas of my life because sometimes you just need it. As much as you can do things on your own, the level to which you can do them sometimes is not the best. And even if it can be the best, if you have a lot of other things that you're doing, you're just not doing it at the optimal capacity. So if you want to keep going, if you have a goal ahead, ask for help. Because there's somebody out there who is so much better than you, who can get it together for you so much better, so much faster, so much more expediently, with so much more expertise than you can. And that one lesson that I learned with just going to the gym and being blessed, honestly, that it's a gym with a fantastic trainer. This is not one of these, like fancy gyms. This is a backyard gym, which is it's really well put together. But the point is, I'm getting really good expert help. So that's my last thing for keeping on how I keep going. And I hope that that has been helpful for you. And the other thing that I wanted to say here is that, as I give myself permission to change, that one of the things that I have been doing as well as diversifying in my business, I have done coaching before, coaching people on their marketing and communications for their business. These are either small businesses or large businesses. So I have been playing advisory roles, and I've developed a program to help founders, leaders, experts, professionals, to give them the help, the expert help. And so This also came out of me working with a coach who helped to clarify a lot of things for me and whose advice I'm still going on to this day. So I wanted to say a little bit about that program, which is called Rooted and Ready, and it's a strategic, visible authority program for women founders, leaders, and experts. They work with me one-on-one over a 12-week period. And the reason why is because just like I had to go to the gym and get this expert help, and now I feel so changed and I see the results so much faster for myself. This is the kind of help that I'm offering to women because I do have 15 years of experience in this field now. And I have seen what does work consistently. And it's not always the things that people say are the things that work, because sometimes it's just very personal to you and so unique for your own business and how you run that business and what you want for that business. So Rooted and Ready is my one-on-one coaching program to give help to women founders, leaders, and experts who have been taking on a whole lot, doing a lot on their own for themselves, and yes, getting results, but not getting them fast enough. So I did want to plug that program here because one of the major ways that I've kept going is to ask for help. And one of the ways that I would love to continue to give help to businesses in the Caribbean, especially for women founders, leaders, and experts like myself, is to help them, you, keep going. All right. So to recap, how I keep going is 1, I make a decision to keep going. 2, I decide not to doubt myself. So I put that, what if, and if it doesn't work, and suppose I'm wrong about this, and all of them things. Don't doubt yourself, like my good late father used to say. Usually your first instinct is the right one to go with. The third thing is that I reduce the self-judgment. So, I have to give up, how I look and how I sound and, what people might think and all of that, like reduce that judgment over myself, put that behind, and continue with the idea, the topic, the goal, the objective, the program that I have planned, and see it through. The fourth thing is just give yourself permission to change, to improve, to iterate as you go. Give yourself the permission. You're not going to start at perfect. You might never get to perfect, but you have time for a reason. Time is a factor in our lives for a reason. It gives you time. You get that time to evolve, but you have to put in the time and give yourself the permission to evolve. And the fifth one is you have to ask for help when you know that you've reached that point when you need the help. You may have to swallow your ego to do it, but do it. Ask for the help. So that is it. That is my unscripted episode of the Island Woman podcast for today. And if you have watched, listened to, followed, you are at the end of this episode with me. Thank you so, so much for taking the time. If you have watched this on YouTube, I give this a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and continue to follow along on the Island Woman podcast journey. Please share the podcast with a friend if you find it valuable. And if you prefer audio, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Amazon Music. I would so, so appreciate that so that I know how I'm doing, which episodes speak to you the most, so that I can give you more of that kind of content. So this has been episode 10, season 3 of the Island Woman podcast. I'm your Island Woman Dianne Squires, aka Dianne. Until next time.